Hello, myself Sunil Ramakrishnan Nair. Here, basically, we are discussing about the formula part. That is basically 155th number. So, in this 155th number, basically, we are going to discuss little bit more about the formulas. Basically, um, in last part, basically, we were discussing about the generation. Basically, what is generation? Generation means next generation. For example, there is one person. Um, Before this, basically, we will take one more topic. Uh, to do the next generation and to finish the next generation, there are two teams. One is basically those teams who basically finish their generations, and another is basically who creates, who helps to generate the generation. Basically, you can say for next generation. So, like this, basically, there are two teams. Assume that there are two teams. One is to one basically that is those team who are helping to have the next generation, and another team that is basically which basically you can say they are doing the hard works so that the next generation is not supposed to happen. For example, there is one family basically, uh, when basically male and female got married, and in this basically due to some and basically assume that this marriage, the boy basically which was doing, which has done the marriage, it's a second marriage basically you can say. So and the girl basically was also having some conflict. So due to that basically the both side basically there are few peoples who are telling that this generation is not supposed to go ahead. Ahead means they should not have the boys and girls basically whatever basically. And one team is that basically who says that yeah, this group, these people, this boys and girls, this is boy and girl basically has supposed to have next generation. So like this is about the human generation you can say. So here basically there are how many teams? One is the those team basically who's telling that who are basically the enemy, and one is the another team basically who are the friends basically of the those of these boys basically, boys and girls basically who friends are basically going to help to have the next generation. Next generation means next family basically you can say. So this is basically about the human generation. Now in software generation basically you can say version basically you can say version generation, that is basically a next generation of the software industry basically. One software is basically just now basically assume that wherein one software company launched their CRM product, so they will give the version number as a 1.1. Then basically the after some time basically they launched a few they added few more um, you can say facilities and lots of things basically, and then they told that this is the next version. So like this they are keeps on adding the versions. So this is basically the you can say as the software basically the customers likes, until that basically the generation will go. If the customer will not like the software, then basically when basically the software will not like, the data is not going to getting the data will not get enter. That means the software basically next generation time is over basically you can say. So that is basically the software next version basically is not going to prepare because the data is not getting enter. So it's a software industry, it's like that. But in human basically it's not like that. In human basically if you people does not like this men and these boys and girls, so that basically they are against the next generation of them. And few people says that yeah basically we like these both boys and girls. um, so they basically going to help to the to have the generation. Few people do very bad basically, so that the if he basically do the second marriage or also, then also basically he will not have the boys and boys up to that level basically the enemy basically you can say. So here basically we are not discussing that on the thing. Here basically we are discussing about the next generation basically. Next generation means software industry's next generation. So we will take one more example of the next generation, that is basically the cyclone basically you can say. The tufan in Hindi basically it's a word basically given by the Sanskrit people, that is tufan. Tufan means the air is going to circulate across the city, basically we can say, and there are lots of manipulations happens in the across the city because here the subscription plan which was taken by the government, that is going to get blast. So Tufan basically you can say once this is basically topic we are going to discuss in detail, but little bit basically we will talk that about this Tufan and cyclone, that up to what deep level basically we are going to discuss about this cyclone. One small example I will take. Two example I will take. One example is basically the you have seen the guns bullet, right? So that is the base of the cyclone. So you can just imagine the if the bullet of the gun, that is the base of the cyclone. So and the cyclone speed basically sometimes is up to 200, 300, 400, 500, 600. Maximum I think it's 525, which was long before it was happened. But up to that level basically the cyclone is connected, and that also with the help of that tiny bullet, which is basically created mostly in tamba or I think some iron basically. Up to this much you can say this is the size of the size of that object. Basically we can give this object as a name as a bullet. Basically in the gun basically we have the bullets. So that much tiny is the base of the cyclone basically. We will discuss basically in detail how basically cyclone is working. But the main here is what basically we are going to discuss after some time. That is basically the universe basically. The Earth planet is moving. There are crores of planets moving in the sky. So there basically in the universe, if I say that this bullet is equal to Earth planet in universe, then you can believe this. So again repeating the word what I told, in Earth planet this tiny bullet generates, and the base of the tufan and the base of the cyclone is this tiny bullet, right? But in universe, if I say that Earth planet is the object on the base of the certain manipulation happens in universe across the Earth planet, across the around the Earth planet, lots of winds happens, lots of cyclone happens, and in the universe lots of manipulations happens. So you will believe it. So this basically we are going to discuss about in detail basically what actually the cyclone is and what is the stuff basically the cyclone is doing, and how basically the cyclone is directly connected with the universe, and how Earth planet is one of the object is getting used as a cyclone in universe basically. That basically we are going to discuss in detail basically you can say. So that is basically the big level topic, but that is basically connected with the satellites industry basically you can say. So here basically we will be discussing after some time in next part in many after some parts basically. So here basically we are discussing about the next generation. So in each and every sector basically you can say it's next generation is there. Previously basically how was the temples basically you can say, and now basically how the temple is getting created. So that is basically the next generation creation basically. The architecture of the temples basically, the architect of the temple group, the architect group basically you can say, who are basically into creation of the each and every temples. So they says that basically this is the next generation. Like same way basically the trees are getting generated nowadays. Basically you will see yellow trees also, brown trees also, brown leaf trees also. That is basically the next generation. How basically, because nowadays from software industry, from software energies basically trees are getting created. So this is next generation basically you can say tree structure basically you can say. So how the next generation is doing the each and every structures of the Earth planet, that is basically connected with software industry. And then basically the next generation is, I have taken one example of the Bollywood industry basically. In Bollywood industry, Bollywood industries are basically telling that we have created 16 to 17 sectors. In 16 to 17 sectors basically the software industry is one of the small sector which we have created on the base of user stories, and these user stories are basically dumped in the 20,000 buildings, and the spaces are basically also there. So 20,000 buildings and the spaces. On the base of this user stories, basically the entire software industry is connected. If we change the user stories of this software industry, then basically the 20,000 building will get effect. Either it will get modified or basically it will get added basically. So it's more change or add. This is going to happen in the software industry. So you can just imagine basically the next level generation basically. So software industry next generation basically is decided by the Bollywood industry. And Bollywood industry basically everybody knows where basically Bollywood industry is staying. That is in Mumbai. So Mumbai basically is the, you can say, the heart of the software industry, and where basically the next generation of the software industry is getting prepared. So that is basically next generation. I have taken one example of the, assume that boys and girls are from Mumbai, and that next generation basically they basically got second marriage, and basically due to second marriage, few people says that we will not allow these people to have their next generation, and few people says that we will help them in next generation, and few people says that we have already done each and every stuff of the next generation. So that basically the negative thinking basically we can say what we have done up to what level next generation you have done basically that the next generation will not happen. So this basically are related to the next generation topic basically you can say. So here basically we are discussing about the software industry next generation, that is basically the 20,000 buildings and the cities basically created, and this 20,000 buildings are in mostly situated in assume that it's situated in 190 countries. So basically 100% it's not in one country, it's basically in many countries basically you can say, and it's in many countries the user stories are created, and Bollywood basically keeps track of the each and every user stories also. If these 20,000 movies are sorry 20,000 buildings are created, that are basically created on the base of certain user stories, and that user stories are basically dumped in the movies, and where with this movie basically are that basically everybody knows in the theater basically they watch, and in the reel basically you can say, and nowadays it's a CD and a pen drive basically you can see the movies. So that movie are based on basically the base of the software industry you can say, and that is basically created by the set of groups basically of the Bollywood industry, that are basically big directors and the producers and the writers and the actress basically. This is that we have taken lots of money to create this 20,000 buildings basically, and we have done lots of hard work also to have the next generation, and the 20,000 building is going to generate next generation as well. That is basically the plus and minus is going to happen. Sorry, plus and addition is going to happen. And if sometime user story has not created properly, then basically it will happen minus. So that's basically depend upon the Bollywood industry basically how they create their structure. If the minus will happen, that means basically they have not done the user story properly. That basically is going to affect their industries only basically, because the futures will say that yeah basically these people basically do the minus also. So that type basically the negative thinking basically comes into the software industry group basically, because the lots of software companies owner and directors and the producer are basically touch with the and the project managers and the project coordinators and service delivery heads and CEO and vice versa. And these people are basically touch with this 20,000 building creations basically. They are touch with the software industry, they are touch with this soft 20,000 user stories. So when they will be hearing that the user story is getting minus and the buildings are getting minus, then basically they will say yeah basically this Bollywood industry basically do this type of plans. So that's basically it's a user story. So user story basically are created on the base of certain movies, and if the once the movie is created, that basically never gets modified, because this type of thing never happens, because once the movie is created that has came in front of the public, that means that movie is created. That's all. It can be part two, but it can't be modified. But in part two, basically, they are not doing the modification. They are doing the addition, basically, we can say. But some basically time, if their director, producer sees, feels that basically this scenes basically was supposed to modify, then they do the modification also, and that affects directly to the software industry areas basically, that are basically the 20,000 buildings plus minus happens. So that basically very rare happens, but that because the Bollywood industry are one of the big planner, basically you can say, they says that we have done the 40 year plus plan also. That means after 40 years what is the things going to happen. For that also basically we have created lots of building. So like this, basically the Bollywood industry is ahead than basically 20, 40 years. So that basically they are thinking, basically you can say, the Bollywood industry says that we have done the plan and we have done the 40 years next generation, basically you can say, and we have stopped many generation also. So that basically in Mumbai, basically the Bollywood industry says that we have created everything in Mumbai. And in Mumbai, basically, we have created each and every user stories, each and every next generation, which next generation is going to happen, and which next generation we have already stopped. So 40 years, basically, after 40 years, what is the things going to happen? So this all are basically we have done in Mumbai. So in Mumbai, basically, we have done each and every user stories, and this everything is created, and each and everything is done also. Like this 20,000 building is also created. So like this, basically, here we are talking about the next generation, which is telling that if this thing happen, that means basically the next generation is going to happen. That's basically the experts group basically says. If this person is going to do this activity, that means this next generation is going to happen. If that person is going to do this activity, then basically the next generation is not going to happen. So there are lots of experts basically who are into this business also. This has basically converted into business. Next generation, basically we can say. Next generation means PD to PD. That basically in Hindi, basically you would say PD to PD. Generation to generation, basically you can say. So that basically is the thinking, basically you can say, of the Bollywood industry. How Bollywood industry is thinking, how they say Bollywood groups feels that this person's next generation is supposed to happen, and this person's next generation is not supposed to happen. So this is basically the 145th number. In 156th, basically we are going to discuss a little bit more about the Bollywood industry and software industry, how each and every things are basically connected, and the 20,000 example of the buildings, basically, which I have already given to you.